Welcome, everyone. This is Monday, November 18th. If you have any questions, concerns, come up to one of these microphones, tell us your name and number, address, and tell us what's on your mind, please. Would you call the roll, please?
Cedar.
Here.
Ellery.
Here.
Kinspotter.
Here.
Koopa.
Here.
Laporte.
Here.
McCartney.
Here.
Watt.
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go to consent agenda A. City Council minutes of November 4th, 2019. Regular meeting recommendation approved.
So moved. Support.
Motion's made and supported. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll go to number 5. We have Mark White from Homeland Security here tonight. Mark, for an update on what's going on and what's anticipated to go on.
All right, good evening, Mayor and members of Council. I'm Mark White, Deputy Director for Homeland Security Emergency Management for St. Clair County. So it's my pleasure to be here tonight. Justin's double booked. He's taking care of some business out in Yale tonight. So my pleasure to come before you and the citizens of St. Clair. And let's discuss what the next year holds for us. 2019 was a rough year. We all recognize the impacts that have been the effects on Algonac and Clay Township, Marine City, Cotterville, all the coastal communities here in St. Clair County. 2020 doesn't promise to be any better, and in fact, according to some of the predictions from National Weather Service, Climate Prediction Center, and the Army Corps of Engineers, it's going to be a worse year for 2020. Everyone has hopefully a handout before them. This is the low-tech PowerPoint version. Every one on council, of course, has one as well. Just to kind of give some talking points that we are trying to give the same message to everyone, along from Birchville Township all the way down to Ira and every point in between, is to kind of give that update of what's taking place. So our offices had quite a few meetings with Army Corps of Engineers and National Weather Service, and our big concern is, okay, what's coming our way? And once again, it's not just St. Clair County. A lot of coastal communities in Michigan are being impacted huge by the weather that we've had, and the amount of precipitation, the amount of snowpack, the amount of runoff and melting, everything that comes from Lake Superior on down has been huge. And predictions are that this coming year is going to be probably worse. We saw record levels this year. This coming year, they're looking at increased levels from anywhere from 6 to 12 inches higher. And our office has taken the stance we don't want to be alarmists. We want to be informists. We want to make sure that our citizens understand the impacts and what's potentially coming our way. A lot of lessons learned this past year. We learned a bunch to ourselves, regarding how all of the hydrology comes to play and the impacts that it takes on people and property and homes and stuff. And it's just it's tough because there's nothing that we can do. I mean, it's a God-given event, and we're just going to have to live through it and make sure that our citizens are prepared, and that's the reason for this information tonight. So once again, Army Corps has met with us. They provided a huge amount of assistance through distribution of sandbags. And of course, we saw the interpreters as well, buying them and selling them for somewhat of a little bit of a profit, but a huge amount of that stuff was distributed throughout the county. And it's probably not going to be enough. We're looking at advanced measures as well through Army Corps of Engineers, and that's some technical expertise where they look at our coastline, see where the issues are, what the problems are, and where can we do some extra measures to kind of help, people along the coast. Whether there's some specific barriers, water barriers or HESCO barriers or just stone-filled cages, a lot of different things that could be done to kind of help lessen the impact. Right now, even we're seeing huge impacts up in Birchville Township. A lot of the high wind warnings, the gale warnings we've had, the northeast winds coming has just caused huge amounts of land erosion up along the beachfront properties. So, there are some homes that are pretty close to being inundated, and as you see on pictures all the time, that the coastline is eroding fairly well, and that's just a cyclical type of event that's taking place. So, just trying to forecast the things that are coming our way. For 2020, 7 to 8 inches is the norm of what we're kind of looking at. Army Corps said it could be, once again, anywhere from 6 to 12 inches, so it's not an exact science. It all determines on how much precipitation, how much snow, how much water density is within that snow, especially for the Upper Peninsula, around Canada. Anything that filters into Lake Superior eventually is going to make its way down here. And all that water coming in from Lake Huron, channels into the St. Clair River, and then, of course, funnels down to the Delta and out to Lake St. Clair. So we're going to have some choking points. Things that we'll be concerned about is the ice pack. Depending on the weather that we're looking for, and the Climate Prediction Center, which is a division of NOAA, actually is going to release their next product November 21st. And with that, they're going to identify just how bad things are going to get, how cold it's going to be, how much snow we're looking at. Long-term trends is what they look at. It's not like a weekly forecast. They're talking months. And they're looking at the ice impacts, how much ice we're going to get, and then when things start breaking up in springtime, there's going to be some significant flooding that's going to occur because of the backups that occur, down by the channels. When you get down around Harson's Island, there's always seems to be that huge backup of water, and this is when we have those ice dams that reach from the top of the river down to the floor of the river. It's just going to cause some backups. So our residents, like in Cotraville, East China, there might be some impacts here to the city as well. We look at also the tributaries, the Pine River. I know we had some issues with the golf course and some surrounding, minor flooding. Look for that to continue, and look for that to probably get just a hair worse. So that's why we're making sure that residents are informed. Recognize that if you might be in a floodplain, and once again, FEMA does really good strides in making sure that the floodplain maps have just been updated. You can go to their website and look at the latest maps that are out there. And if you think that you might need it, then it's probably a good idea to purchase that flood insurance. Now is probably that window to do it before, your actual properties start to flood. They're worried about your homes. Property is one thing that is going to be kind of secondary. It's the life that we worry about, and the properties and the homes are the most significant. We've also had discussions with the U.S. Coast Guard, as outlined in the handout here, and it was really a huge push to try to get them staged all winter long in the St. Clair River. Well, their purview takes them anywhere from, Bad Axe all the way down to Lake Erie and all points in between, and they can't guarantee or promise that, yep, we can have a icebreaker sitting close by in case things back up. They're going to do their best. Their first, one of the priorities is in there is talking about navigation. Search and rescue obviously is number one. Urgent response is their second priority, and then exigent circumstances, and that's where the flooding aspects fall in. Flooding, of course, refers to significant flooding to homes, not just to properties, but it actually has to be affecting your homes, is what the Coast Guard outlines. And then last but not least, of course, is the facilitation of navigation. They try and keep those, the navigable waterways open as long as they can until things, eventually freeze right over. So a lot of escorting, a lot of ice breaking done last year. We anticipate the same thing happening again this year. Our counterparts from the Canadian Coast Guard, same thing. They'll have a couple of icebreakers that'll be, stationed on their side as well. Our Canadian coastal areas are just as concerned. The First Nations, they're all looking at this whole prospect as like what's going to be taking place and how can we assist our residents and get them prepared. So that's the reason for this whole presentation tonight. Canals, and drains, we saw some major impacts as well this past year. That'll also be a huge concern for 2020. I know the Marine City drain was one, that really used to be just like a little ditch. in this past year, it looked like the Amazon River for all, intents and purposes. It was just, horrendous, just the amount of water and the efforts that we employed with all of our jurisdictions just to keep streets dry and passable and so people can move. That's part of our whole purpose is to keep critical infrastructure intact. And part of that is, keeping our roadways passable, having access for our firefighters, our police officers, our ambulances. That's huge to make sure that those people can do their work, getting to people that need assistance. So that's kind of, the impacts we're kind of looking at. I know there's a huge backlog on some seawall construction. Armoring your property is one aspect that can be done. I don't think St. Clair is going to have much of an issue just based on your elevation compared to how high things are. There might be some minimalistic impacts, but I would expect the Pine River to see some extra flooding this year through your city. Some more of the others, just talking about, more of the Algonac, Harson's Island area with the potential flooding and the ice formations and the ice bridges and all the backups that are going to occur throughout the spring, and then the high water continuing in through summer. So it's an information piece that we want to make sure everyone gets the message. Be prepared. And if you need some assistance, if you need have some questions answered, that's why our office is there. We've got staff available to assist at any point to try and get you in the right direction for some assistance, some help, or even looking at, do we need to evacuate? Do we need to look at some long-term sheltering? That's something we're looking at definitely for southern St. Clair County. It's probably going to be a long-term event, not just a weekend at your in-laws or stuff like that. But so that's all I have for the presentation. I would open up for any questions that the council has, or if any of our residents would like to ask a question.
Any questions for Mark?
How high did the river level go up this year at its highest point? Do you know?
So the highest point was just below 579. It was, and I think it was like 578.8. is what it was at. And I know the water has receded somewhat over the past month or so. That's just cyclical, and I think it's right. If I looked at it today, it was 587.4 was that highest, but it does fluctuate quite a bit. It's one of the rare things about the Great Lakes system that the cyclical effects can cause it to be like a 6-foot ebb and wane. I mean, it can be 6 foot higher, then it can be 6 foot lower. It's just amazing how high the Great Lakes can take on the water and get rid of the water. And if we had that same effect with the oceans, we'd see coastlines wiped right out. So oceans, usually if they rise an inch or so, that's pretty heavy duty stuff. Or for the Great Lakes, 6 foot seems to be that common denominator, which is a huge paradigm shift in how we look at water levels. And unfortunately for us, based upon weather patterns, how things evaporate or don't evaporate and how things get built up, that's just going to, predict that it's going to be worse for 2020, unfortunately. Anything else?
Anything else? All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, we will go to number 6, ordinance and resolution. Resolution 1927, authorizing the City of St. Clair signatory for MDOT contract number 195442. Mr. Rothy.
Yes, one of the police officers has been working with MDOT to install collapsible and removable pedestrian crossing signage on M29. I've been told there's signs like this in downtown Port Huron. And the contract with MDOT calls for the city to install signs in 3 locations, maybe 4, I don't quite remember. But in order to move forward with that, a resolution needs to be passed by council authorizing me as the person who can sign the contract on behalf of the city of St. Clair.
I'd make a motion.
Support.
All right, the motion made, supported. Questions?
Will they be there all the time, or
No.
just certain events?
Yeah, I don't think we've really worked all of that out yet. Chief may be able to comment a little bit more.
I'd like to have them out at least spring through fall, while all the events are on and people are out moving around. We have to have them out before snow removal starts, so that's all.
Chief, why aren't the markers out in front of at the Cargill crosswalk, why aren't they out in the center lane all the time?
Because we don't have this permit.
Is that the reason?
We keep getting yelled at. We put that one out in the middle and we get yelled at, and
By whom?
the state.
So this will solve that?
Yeah,
Okay, that's probably the most dangerous crosswalk we have.
right.
It is.
And they're actually willing to purchase their portion.
But those will be permanently fixed in the left turn lane,
Yeah.
or in the center turn lane?
Yes.
Good. Thanks.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Pupa,
Yes.
Laporte,
Yes.
McCartney,
Yes?
Swat,
Yes.
Ellery,
Yes.
Kinsfater,
Yes.
Cedar,
Yes.
Adopted Drummond.
Thank you. All right, let's go to number 7, reports of administration. City Superintendent, Mr. Rothy.
Yes, I just finished up last week my series of budget meetings with all our department heads. Those went very well, really informative for both myself, Jessica, and our accountant, Michael. Just kind of, again, understanding the big picture, taking a quick deep dive into the different components of the city's budget. So that's been really helpful for me. I got a lot of different ideas on how to just kind of improve the way we categorize expenses in the budget, where the revenue comes from, where the expenditures go. So that was really helpful for me, and it'll continue to be helpful going into the next budget cycle, probably which will be early spring of next year to get ready. I think we have to adopt in June. So that was great. I've been meeting with Bob Beath. We are planning on introducing some street candidates for repair for next year's street maintenance program. So those projects will be up for council's consideration before we put them out to bid, just to make sure, everybody's okay with the streets we're picking. I'm expecting that at the next council meeting to have those streets ready. And then another program that we've been working on in the last 3 weeks, myself and Jessica, our treasurer, we've been speaking with North Star Bank, which is where we do all of our banking in, and they have a program which is called Insured Cash Sweep. And essentially, it's a way to get a higher interest rate on our cash and have it remain FDIC insured. We're allowed, it's like a separate account at North Star Bank where the interest rate right now on our checking account, we're getting 0.4% APY. This is all going to be 1.5% APY, so it's over 200% higher rate on interest. So what we did is we have about $7 million in our general fund, general checking account in our bank. So we moved $4 million into this new higher interest rate account just to see, just as a thing. And we are allowed 6 transfers a month, so should something, so that $3 million we have left over, but we're writing the checks from, should that diminish, at any time, we can easily transfer some of that balance over. And we don't always have that much money in our bank account. This is mostly just because tax season just finished and most of our revenue is taxes. So that's, and again, at this point, I don't know what additional interest that's going to generate. It obviously will be higher because the interest rate has gone up over 200%. So once we see the first bank statement of that, I will share with council those higher returns. And at that point, that kind of concludes my report.
Anything from Mr. Rothy tonight?
I do have something. We're experiencing warm weather this year, this week, and some rain, and I'm hoping that DPW is on top of getting the leaves picked up.
Sure.
Have you talked to him about that?
I had a
with his
conversation
plan?
with Bob the other day, and he said as quick as it gets, he's thinking like Wednesday and Thursday can be for 40 or something.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of streets that there's no snow now, and the leaves are, it's time.
terrible. It's a bad situation, but
Yeah.
I mean, it was no one's fault. We got early snow,
Right.
but
Yeah.
now that it's gone, we should get the leaves.
And I would like to just remind council that we typically run 2 leaf crews, two trucks, 2 vacs. We are down 1 truck. The one that was ordered early in the year still is yet to be delivered, so we're only operating with 1 truck right now. So regardless of the weather, we're only running half the equipment we were before. So just as you're communicating with residents, keep that in mind, that that's a reality. And Bob B. spoke with the truck was built, the chassis part, but it's being held up at the bodybuilder, if you will, who affixes the leaf collection box to it. And it's been there since August. And we're just working on trying to get that.
So are they going to be able to handle it with 1 truck, or, do we have to look into getting a subcontractor in here to help out, or?
I think once, we were essentially waiting for the snow to melt a little more before we made that decision, but it is an option that we'll certainly be thinking about as soon as, 1 more warm day or 2, and we'll see what we can accomplish.
anything else, Mr. Rothy? All right. Mr. Downey, you have anything tonight?
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
All right, city departments, and Nat, I think this is you.
Yes, Your Honor. The November 5th, 2019 special election results are available on the city website and the county clerk's website. The city proposal did pass. The next election is March 10th of 2020. It's the presidential primary. I am looking for 4 to 6 more election inspectors. The applications are available on our website and also at City Hall. And of course, training will be, well, it's required, but it'll also be helpful when you're stepping in. So I look forward to new workers in 2020. Potentially 4 elections, 3 for sure. So we need to build our crew up. That's all I have.
Thank you. Let's go to D, authority boards and commissions, committees. Anybody? Unfinished business, we'll go to number 9, new business. St. Clair County foreclosed property.
Yes, so in January and February of 2018, council considered properties that were foreclosed in the city of St. Clair, primarily in the Jordan Creek condominium development. So this is a condominium development that was platted, but not all the units were built on. And at that time, there was several lots or condominium units that were unbuilt that were available for the city to have for no cost at the city that had just been turned over on the tax roll. And so at that time, the city owns 3 of these parcels now. Well, 4. They had 3, and then last year in early 2018, there was another one up for grabs, and the city exercised its right to, once the properties are offered at auction and nobody buys them, the city gets to claim them at no cost. We received a letter from the treasurer saying that there is another unit that has essentially been turned over enough times and the city could take on this property if the council wishes. I did include a map of the development here. So there's a cluster of 3 on the far right. Those were the 3 that were already owned by the city. And then number 17, kind of more in the center, that was the one that we just added last year. And then this new one has the star, that's unit number 18. That's the one that is being offered to the city at no charge now, although there is a $30 recording fee to record the deed transfer at the county. So again, this is something that council has acted on in the past. The recommendation from Assessor Houston in January of 18 was the city would eventually reclaim all of the properties. There was 12 parcels, it's an exact, and that at that point they could essentially just combine them all into a common area to be used by the condominium. And that was just an idea that again was recommended by Assessor Houston in a memo. I didn't attach that memo because I talked about a few other things. I didn't want to get council confused on what we were talking about, but at this time council can take action on this parcel if it wishes.
There's a memory care unit that was supposed to be developed down there. Is that behind these parcels or at the end?
It's almost next to them, in kind of in where all the 40s and 60s are. It's in that area, and that is still moving forward. They had a lot of wetland stuff to go through, and I just spoke with D, our building inspector, this week about that, and he says that they are still, again, the goal is to build that facility still. So should the city acquire more of these properties, that could certainly be used to in some type of accommodate, either an expansion of one of the properties if the city council so desired.
I'd make a motion that we acquire the property.
Support. All right, the motion made, support. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Let's go to B, Chief, special event, Christmas tree stroll and downtown holiday light display.
I received a request for a special event from the chamber. Christmas tree stroll and downtown holiday light display to run from November 22nd through January 31st. They say many businesses are going to participate, mainly the plaza, but other businesses also. I have all the paperwork, so I would recommend you approve it.
Motion to approve. Support.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Chief. Number 10 is claims of the accounts for November 7th, 14th, 2019.
Hearing no questions, Your Honor, I make a motion to approve as presented.
Support.
Any Questions?
Let me go back to the other form. This don't tell you nothing.
Which, do you have two different forms again?
What's that? It's got a lot of wasted paper, but it doesn't, I mean, all it gives you is the vendor. Gives,
So the preference is the form that has the description
gives
on
you
it
a
as well?
description, so it just saves a lot of questions and a little bit of time if it's on there.
Good thought, sir.
Pass that along to Michael.
Absolutely.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 11 is public comment. 3 minutes. Any non-agenda items tonight, anybody?
Good evening. Fred Hayes, 709 Clinton Street. Again, I'm back here on the barber shop at 602 South 8th. A little bit of history. Back in February, I filed a complaint, and it took 99 days to get from one side of the building to the chief of police. In June, when the chief gave his investigation, he explained that Mr. Rood felt that an average of 4 days a week was more than enough to stay at his residence. I don't see anything in the ordinances where it says you only have to average 4 days a week. It says it's supposed to be your residence. And during that time, when I did watch Mr. Rood through that winter period, it was kind of a cat and mouse game. He would come in at night, leave his truck, and then leave the house, the residence, go and then be brought back in the morning. Again, no one really said why that happened. But again, through the summer, instead of being a cat and mouse game, it just became blatant. He would not show up at all and spend the evening. He didn't even bother to park his truck and get taken away later in the evening or brought back the next morning. Now it's just a matter of Mr. Rood deciding when he wants to spend the night at the barbershop where he has his license as a home occupancy. I feel that other people in the city are going by the ordinance and staying where they're supposed to be at their residence because they have a home occupancy license, but Mr. Rood, again, doesn't do it. I filed another complaint again on the 31st of October. I don't want to wait 99 days to hear what the investigation of that's going to be, but for the first 9 days of November, he's only spent one night at the residence, 602 South 8th. Now, this last week, he was closed. I completely understand that. He was gone. But again, he's making a mockery of the ordinance. I mean, people all around town know, especially the people who go to his barbershop, know that they all got to do is call him up and they'll come and cut your hair. His time to open and his time to close, he does it when he wants to. Again, all I'm saying is if he wants to have a business, fine, have a business, put it in the business district, move it out of the residential area. That's all I'm asking. Again, I have nobody to call at 10 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning and say, Mr. Root's not there tonight. Can I log this with somebody that's not myself making the phone call or the only one seeing the observation? So again, I'd just like some kind of answer one way or the other.
Any input on that, Mr. Downey?
Mr. Hayes, thank you for taking the time to address the council. I will follow up with the police department on where the status is on your complaint. Obviously, it's a fact-driven analysis, and frankly, I mean, I've known you for a very long time, and your stature in the community is such that I don't know that anything more than your verification of logging those times in is going to be satisfactory to us. So we'll take a look at that and try to get your response forthwith.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Anybody else?
John Chinsky, 937 Thornapple. I got two requests. First one is I was downtown the other day and I noticed on our beautiful Palmer Park monument we got down there that the lights are out. There was only one light on it. Now, is this going to be just when the lights burn up, we're not changing them? I know they spend a lot of money.
On the arch?
On the arch, yeah, Palmer Park arch. The light, there was one light on. And my second thing is when is the city going to take care of the blight over on 8th Street? I see now they're trying to cover it up. This is in a R1 zone where you can't have that kind of stuff. We have the code enforcer going and telling people that they can only keep their travel trailers in their driveways for 2 weeks, and that's it. Get them out. You can't keep a regular trailer in the front of your house. Get it out. But we've got a whole city block that's going to blight, and it's a residential. And then you've got other people with a multi-use area complaining that somebody's not living in the house. Now, what's happening to our city? That's what I want to know. It's crazy. It's stupid. And as far as Mr. Hayes is, he's in a multi-use area, and he should realize that they're going to be subject to changes. If he can't take changes, he should shut his camera off and go up north. So that's my comment. That's only by me. But I'd like somebody to take care of 8th Street. It's getting to look awful.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Okay, Ms. Boda, do you want to come up and talk about the pictures, photo ops at the museum for like Friday after Thanksgiving? I'm taking that as a yes.
Now, why would you ask me that?
Well, I thought it was an interesting idea.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
While she's coming up, if I could please interject, Mary Boda was recognized by the St. Clair Women's League last week at the St. Clair Historical Commission for over 50 years of service not only in the fire hall but throughout the city, and recognized as the Volunteer of the Year, and she's an awesome asset to St. Clair.
She really is, yeah. We'll vote on it. Aren't you glad you came?
Make sure he spells that right, Mary.
Oh, well, and nobody can spell it. Nobody can spell it. So you want to, well, you probably got the letter about what we're doing in November.
Yeah.
So you know all about it.
No. But I think you do.
And come to the museum and have your family picture taken by the fireplace in the new room, the Bell Reeve room that we just did. And you can take your own picture, or Sunday there will be a professional photographer there, and you can do it that way, whatever way. But anyway, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday after Thanksgiving. This was Bob Freehand's idea and then you pay $6 to the museum, so we'll make some money. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Thanks for all you do. Your family has been great for the city.
Butchie knows what we did at the fire hall.
Yeah. All right, let's go to number 12. I have kind of a long list of things, I guess, and Mrs. Boda just took care of one of them. I also want to mention that Bob Plonka is retiring this month after over 30 years of service to the city. So congratulations to Bob Plonka. We did talk to Bob Beath about the leaves, and he is aware, and obviously, hopefully he'll be on that. City Hall is closed next Thursday and Friday. Trash pickup is next Friday. Santa Parade is this Friday at 6 o'clock. There's a fundraiser this Saturday over at 7th and Clinton. It's at 5 o'clock for a local needy family. Everybody have a good Thanksgiving. Be safe. I think that's all I have.
Your Honor, I do have one thing. At the recreation meeting today, there's a lot of things going on with the rec plan and some of the other things that they've decided they wanted to see done in the city, and we're looking at some goal settings. And are we going to have some of those meetings soon in the beginning of the year? Or? Okay.
Anybody else?
Hearing nothing else, Your Honor, I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Have a good night, everyone. Be careful.